Today is Wednesday, July 26, 2023. I am Mark Beavis. Welcome to the program. On the show today, some of the world's largest companies have announced their earnings. We're going to dive into those numbers. Also, it looks like UPS has averted what could have potentially been a disastrous strike. That's great news. Plus, TC Energy is taking a huge financial hit on its most recent asset sale. And the big tech hitters, they're lining up against Google and Apple to compete in the Maps space. Let's get started with today's news. Shares of Alphabet are up more than 6% this morning after it reported its second quarter earnings that beat Wall Street expectations. Total revenue for the period was up 7% to a $74.6 billion compared to last year. Profit came in at $18.4 billion, an increase of 15% year over year. A bright note here, YouTube ad sales rose 4.4% from a year ago. Now, Google had been slumping a little bit in its advertising sale in recent quarters, but this might be news that signals a potential return to growth in this very important segment for them. Cloud computing segment posted a 28% increase in revenue from last year. Now, shares of Google are up almost 50% year to date. Microsoft shares were down around 4% following their fourth quarter fiscal reporting. They highlighted slowing revenue growth within its cloud business, and they also called for lower than expected guidance for the balance of the year. They reported earnings of $2.69 per share on revenue of $56 billion, up about 8% from last year. They also reported a 20% spike in quarterly profits of $20 billion in the fourth quarter. Microsoft has announced recently that they're going to start charging $30 per user for business accounts that sign up for its Copilot AI module. This integrates the technology into existing software such as Microsoft Word, Excel, and Outlook. So that's a revenue generator for them there. They're also still trying to complete the $69 billion takeover of Activision Blizzard, which has faced numerous court cases and delays time and time again. CNR has announced that profit fell by 12% in the second quarter. They've pointed to wildfires. They've pointed to the BC port strike, hot weather, and Nova Scotia flooding as potential contributors to the decrease in the quarter. Profit for the quarter ending June 30th was $1.16 billion compared to $1.33 billion in the same quarter of 2022. They also reduced their financial outlook for the balance of the year. Tracy Robinson, which is their chief executive officer, says the 13-day BC port strike had a major impact on the flow of goods, and the CN is working to reconnect the supply chains by running extra trains. It is expected to take around 8 weeks to bring things back to normal. Snap, which is the parent of Snapchat, reported for the current quarter, and it also issued weak guidance. The company's share price dropped around 18% on the news. It ended the quarter with $1.07 billion in revenue, a loss of 2 cents a share. Good news is that the street had expected a loss of 4 cents a share. Shares of Coca-Cola were up slightly after the company reported both earnings and revenue that topped Wall Street estimates. Net revenues grew 6% to $12 billion, and organic revenue grew by 11%, fueled mostly by higher prices. Coke also raised its full-year outlook following the strong report. Shares of Boeing were up around 6% this morning after its revenue for the second quarter came in with losses that were lower than had been expected. Revenue year over year rose 18% to $19.75 billion. An uptick in airplane deliveries was the main driver for the quarter. The company says it has ramped up its production in its 737 program to 38 planes a month. So that's more than one plane a day. I don't know how they do it, but they've got a pretty good system figured out there. It's expected over the course of the year that it will deliver between 400 and 450 737s. They also reaffirmed its full year guidance to $4.5 to $6.5 billion of operating cash flow and $3 to $5 billion of free cash flow. UPS announced it has reached a tentative contract with its union, which thankfully should avert a major strike. The deal still needs union members' approval, and the votes are expected to occur beginning August 3rd and running through to August 22nd. The union has about 340,000 members. Now, under the tentative agreement, both full and part-time workers are going to be getting raises, $2.75 more per hour in 2023 and $7.50 an hour more by the end of the 5-year contract. The agreement also says that pay for part-time workers will rise from $16.20 an hour now to $21 per hour. Now, another provision in the agreement was that the company would not force overtime on any of the drivers' days off. You'd think that's pretty rudimentary, but apparently they're still doing that today. This will eliminate that. It also, in a merciful concession here, it agrees that it would equip more trucks with air conditioning. This is the last call for those of you in the Toronto or Montreal areas. Our Investing Academy team will soon be joining the crew from Blossom Social for 2 meet and greets with our students and with our members. We will be in Toronto on August the 1st, and we're going to be in Montreal on August 3rd. I will put links to the events in the description of this video. We all live in an online world these days, and chatting with so many of our community in person at the events that we had in Calgary and in Vancouver really reminds us exactly why we do what we do. The previous meetups that we've had, heard so many personal and inspiring stories, one-on-ones, and we really were humbled and inspired by both of those meetings. We're looking forward to seeing those of you who can attend in Toronto and in Montreal. If you're not on the Blossom app yet, give it a try. I will put a link in the description of this video. So if you're in the Toronto, Montreal areas, we really hope that you're able to join us in a week or so. Shares of TC Energy fell around 7% following the news it has agreed to sell 40% of its stake in Columbia Gas Transmission LLC and Columbia Gulf Transmission LLC for $5.2 billion Canadian. The sale is being made to a private equity firm, Global Infrastructure Partners. Now, the two pipelines are responsible for supplying around 20% of the U.S. liquefied natural gas exports in the U.S. Now, back in March of 2016, TC acquired Columbia Pipeline Group for $10.3 billion US, which at the time sounded like a pretty good deal. It increased their exposure to the very valuable shale gas reserves in the US. But the sale that they announced on Monday results in a sale price far lower than what they had originally paid. Obviously, following the announcement, credit rating agencies Moody's Investor Service and DBRS Morningstar downgraded the company, each of them a 1 notch. A group formed by Meta, Microsoft, and Amazon Web Services announced that they're going to be releasing data that will enable companies to build their own maps without having to rely on Google or Apple. The venture itself is called Overture Maps Foundation. The goal of the Overture is to establish a baseline for maps data so that companies can use it to build and operate their own maps. And this is going to allow these companies to move away from Google and Apple's maps, which do allow app makers to use their maps as a service. In most cases, the users are charged each time that an underlying map is accessed. The goal here also is to make inroads into technologies such as self-driving cars, which obviously are going to require very, very high quality mapping software in the future. Another distinguishing factor that Overture hopes to make is that its data will be more closely vetted and curated. Obviously, a big challenge in the industry is keeping map data up to date. Businesses close, roads change, etc. Overture hopes to gather information in real time from its members, and that will enable more frequent updates instead of the traditional one-time data dumps that exist today. Later today, the U.S. Federal Reserve will be making its interest rate announcement. Current odds are north of 98% that there will be a 25 basis points hike. Meta will be reporting after market close today. Tomorrow, we have MasterCard reporting, AbbVie reporting, McDonald's, Ford, Royal Caribbean Cruise Lines, and Canadian Utilities here in Canada. And on Friday, ExxonMobil, Chevron, Procter & Gamble, and Colgate-Palmolive will all be reporting. I will be back here on Friday with Brandon for our traditional live session. We hope you can join us at 9 o'clock Pacific time then. As always, I do thank you for watching this video. I will put a link for our Investing Academy in the description below, and I look forward to seeing you in a couple of days.